Good morning, everyone. Thomas Vandiver here with the Neighborhood Harvest. It might be cold outside, really frigid morning, but inside our greenhouse, everything's warm. We're growing a bunch of great product for you. Today on our little tour in the greenhouse, which some of you might have seen before, we're going to show you our #1 product, right? So this is the crowd favorite, our Bibb Lettuce. I'm going to take you through the entire life cycle of that crop so you can see exactly how it starts and then where it finishes. So if we start our Bibb, right, it's a big head of lettuce. It's a customer favorite, not just with our customers, but across the United States. Really popular crop. People like it because these big heads, you can see there's some adolescent guys here. When they get big enough, they make a great salad. You can tear the leaves up, but you can also use them for lettuce wraps. They go awesome on a sandwich or a burger. But like any plant, they start small. These are how our little guys start here. So these flats, which are called a 10 by 20 flat in the nursery business, because they're 10 inches by 20 inches, have got 200 seed sites available on them. And so if we tear this thing apart, you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. So right here is a little chunk, little section of them. Each one of these cubes, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are a seed site. If you look really close, you'll see that there's the seed right in there, that little clay ball. And all that clay ball does is help us get a single seed. Because Bibb seeds are really, really tiny. They're way smaller than a grain of rice. And we're able to put each one of those into that little dimple. You wet the product and it sprouts. Now you might ask yourself, what is this? What is this little cube? Well, it's a product called rock wool. And you can see that it kind of falls apart a little bit like cotton candy. And that's exactly what it is it's rock. It's basalt, lava rock. If anyone's ever used a pumice stone before, it's the exact same thing. Only they heat it up. It's made, in fact, this product's made in Canada. They heat it up to a really high temperature, and then they whip it just like cotton candy. If you've ever seen that made at a carnival, same thing. Cotton candy, you're going from a crystalline rock, right, sugar, to this spongy sort of product. And I'm going to hold it up so you can see when you squeeze it, a bunch of water comes out of there because it is truly like a sponge. So what do we use it for? We use it just as a home for the plant. We take the dry rock wool flats, we wet them. The wetness is just to help activate the seed, allow it to germinate. We keep it in here in our greenhouse, is nice and warm. To the side here is one of our racks. This guy has got our pea shoot microgreens in it, but the one just up the way is where the Bibb is started. So it goes into these towers so that they're not exposed to direct sunlight, right? Our seed is going to germinate. These are only about 2 to 3 weeks old when we're going to transplant them. So they grow pretty quickly. Once they germinate, they're in this warm environment, they're going to grow pretty fast. This is the perfect size for transplanting. You can see that plant is in there. It's bit its roots into it. If you come really close, you might be able to see there's roots popping out the bottom. You can see it here as well. All of these roots are from one of those plants. And this is the perfect size that we want to transplant at. It's got established roots. It's ready to go into the system. Well, what is the system? You can't grow plants this tight together, right? Plants need space. They need to spread out. When they're a tiny little seed, they can be right next to each other. But over time, they need to spread apart and get more room. So that's what we do here. What you'll see, these guys were transplanted just a day or two ago. So this one's a little bit floppy, kind of sad. Once you put it into the system, within a day or two, the leaves will turn up to face the sun. So that's what we have on all of these. What you'll notice is that they've been given a little bit more space, right? They're 4 inches apart this way, 5 inches apart this way. That allows them a little bit of room to grow. They're gonna stay in this sort of spacing until they're about 6 weeks old. And that's what you have right over here. So these guys, and I'll pull one out so you can see, these guys are about 6 weeks old. So from here, this is about 3 weeks old, this is about 6 weeks old. So you're gonna go from nothing, right, from a seed to this guy in 3 weeks, give it another 3 weeks in this prime greenhouse condition, and it's gonna get to this size. So what you'll notice here, right, it's the same spacing, same cube. These plants are now bumping into each other, whereas here they've got lots of space. Over on this side, they're bumping into one another. So they have to get spread out, and that's what we have as we come down the line. Before we leave, I just want you to see though, this is actually the end of the cycle. So this is what it'll look like after we've harvested. You've got, a little bit of a mess in here, but not really so bad. All of these will get cleaned and then replanted. We'll put new gutters in here so that they're tight together, and then we'll replant with little babies and we'll start over. But as we come down the line, you'll see going from the baby to the adolescent plant. Now we're coming up here to where we've got some big stuff. That's these guys here. So the tray spacing, if I pull this back, you'll see there's a tray missing. We went from every tray where they were packed right next to each other to now we're at every other tray. The lettuce head is still growing. You can sort of see this cube, right? This is the original cube right here. But it slowly gets kind of blown apart, shredded as these roots go out. It's a really robust, nice root system. The roots are white and clean. That's great. That means that they're healthy and they're happy. You know, a little bit of a science lesson. People wonder how hydroponics works, right? How can you grow stuff just suspended in water? If any of you have got a low spot in your yard, maybe an area that constantly stays wet, you'll notice the grass doesn't grow very well there, right? It's a dead spot. And that's because the water is suffocating the roots. So how can these roots grow when they're constantly suspended in water? And that's what you've got. What you'll see here is that these little emitter hoses are constantly putting water out for the plants. So how is it that we can keep them suspended in water all the time, yet you have this great, beautiful, healthy root growth? It's not starving them. Well, the answer is NFT. That stands for Nutrient Film Technique. So these gutters, you can't see it because the pitch is very, very subtle, but they're actually in the shape of a V. Okay, it's a very, very wide open V, so it's not steep like this. And what happens is as the water passes across, it actually fans out into a film. Okay, so it's a very small amount of water that's trickling across. That gives you enough exposure with our atmosphere in here, right, to exchange oxygen. We also, because that's the key to keeping the roots from necrosis, from dying, from rotting and getting that kind of black rot on them, is oxygen. Okay, so the roots are able to exchange gases with that film. But we also, at our big tanks, we've got big 2,000-gallon tanks where all this water is stored, and it's recirculated. But we've got a pond bubbler on there. If any of you have ever driven past a retention pond, maybe you've seen a really nice decorative one in a neighborhood. But they make ones that are above water and below water. The pretty ones that you see that look more like a fountain, those are above water. And they're doing the same thing. They're just trying to aerate, introduce oxygen. But if you actually put that pump below, and it's like a bubbler that maybe you have in an aquarium in your fish tank, you can introduce a lot of oxygen to that water. Well, we have a bubbler that's meant for a 10-acre lake on our 2,000-gallon tank. So in there, it's bubbling like crazy. And what that does is it introduces oxygen, like at a microscopic level, and it super saturates the water as much as it can outside of a laboratory setting with oxygen. So this water is very, very oxygen rich. So between the exchange of gases with the film technique and the water itself being enriched with oxygen, you're able to grow plants essentially underwater. So I know that might have been a little bit outside the realm of normal grower information, but I think it's really cool, and it's one of the reasons that hydroponics is so effective, is that you're able to give the plants constant access to the water and nutrients they need without drowning them. And that balance is what you have to really work at as a grower, because too little water, you risk the plants starving, drying, dehydrating, because there is no soil to act as a buffer. It's straight to the roots. So if you mess up as a grower, you're going to be in a bad way. But if you keep everything balanced and running smoothly, you're going to be rewarded with a great crop that grows quickly. So as we come down here, these guys are actually, believe it or not ready to pick yet. They're still a little bit too small. As we come down, you'll see some of our bigger stuff. That's right here. Two things we've passed along the way, since we're going to geek out a little bit and show you our greenhouse. You're going to lose me out of the frame, but this green thing here that's got a valve, it's right where we walked past. That is actually a CO2 burner. And what that does is introduce CO2 into our micro atmosphere here. It's cold outside, so we've got our greenhouse locked down tight. It's not bringing in outside air. We don't want to bring in 20-degree air when we're trying to heat it in here. So think about a group of humans in a submarine at the bottom of the ocean. And this is the example I use when I try and teach kids when we go to schools and do presentations on hydroponics. What's going to happen to those guys if their oxygen generator stops? Well, they're going to keep breathing. Eventually, they're going to run out of oxygen, and unfortunately, they will die. Our plants are going to face the same thing in this greenhouse environment, only it's with CO2. By locking the greenhouse down, all of these plants are steady breathing in CO2, giving us back oxygen. Us humans that are in here right now, we've got all of our team working, we're here filming, we're putting CO2 back into the atmosphere, but it's not enough because we're outnumbered. There's 250,000 plants in here, and right now only about 8 humans. So that burner that we showed you earlier is actually putting CO2 into the air to keep the plants metabolizing. Now, they won't die if they run out of CO2. They just stop growing. They stop performing photosynthesis. And we don't want that to happen. We want them to keep growing. We've got a great sunny day today. Our grow lights are still running just because it is the winter time. So we don't want the plants to miss out on the chance to grow. They've got water, they've got nutrients, we've got the air nice and warm for them, we got plenty of sunlight. Those are 4 really important things for growth. But if you don't have CO2, that will be the limiting factor in photosynthesis, which in turn is the limiting factor in your growth. And we're trying to grow food for almost 3,000 people. So we got to keep all our plants running at peak efficiency. Anyways, we come back down. You'll also notice we got a bug zapper here. This bug zapper is one of the things that allows us to be a pesticide-free operation. So being enclosed in this greenhouse environment, that keeps 95% of our pest bugs out, right? They're on the other side of these walls and ceiling. But some of them are going to come in. Not this time of year, because there's not very many bugs outside that are alive. But in the summertime, they might come in under, the hem of your shirt. They might come in on the cuff of your pants, or they might just come in as we open the door. If they do come in, chances are, come evening, when it's dark in here and these bug zappers come on, they're going to get hit. You're going to find a little pile of dead bugs on the concrete in the morning, and that is great. We love to see that because it shows us that our bug zappers are working and that the pests are dead, not trying to attack your lettuce. If those bug zappers, and then our first defense, which is the walls, if that's not enough, if we find that there is a pest problem, typically aphids are our pest problem in this part of the country. What we can do is release ladybugs. Okay, so ladybugs are, you can think of them, they're carnivorous, right? They don't eat plants, they eat other bugs. So if you release ladybugs in here, they're going to cruise around eating all the aphids, killing off those bad bugs, and then they're going to leave the lettuce alone. So they're our ally in the fight. But I just wanted to point out a bug zapper. It's nothing special. It's a big version of what you can buy at the hardware store. But it helps us in our fight against the bugs. As we come down the sidewalk, you'll see these guys here are ready to go. This is the perfect harvest weight that we want to see. And so you can see, same thing, nice root structure, really healthy. But look at that plant. It's way bigger than the size of my hand. And this has come to term from seed to harvest in just about 9 weeks. In the summertime, we're going to finish it off maybe a week or 2 earlier. You might could push 7 weeks in the very depth of the summer. But this time of year, light is a little bit of a limiting factor. Even with all our grow lights, we're nowhere near what the summertime sun is like. And so this guy is coming to term in 9 weeks. And this product here, this Bibb lettuce, some people will call it a butter crunch lettuce or a Boston lettuce, is our #1 selling product. It's what people love the most. We've got a lot of great things that we grow. If you look, turn the camera, you'll see this is all of our greens section of the greenhouse. We've got our tatsoi right up front, which is the dark green one. Go past that, you've got our kale. We've got Swiss chard past that. We do a bunch of really great lettuces. Our green leaf lettuce people love. Provincial, that's our #2. So that one's actually, Juan is planting right now, and it looks like he's jamming out. That's our provincial lettuce. So there's a lot of things that we grow that people absolutely love. But Bibb, by and away, is everyone's favorite. So we've taken you from start to finish. We take our seeds, they go into the Rockwell cube, right? They get about 3 weeks to germinate, get a good strong start. Then they're gonna get put into what we call our nursery trays, right? That's the front of the sidewalk where all of the trays are really close to each other. And we're just doing that because they need space, and you're slowly spreading them out. So you go from this 10 by 20 flat, where you've got 200 plants, to then you've got in a given tray, right? One of these trays in the nursery section. In this spot here, you're gonna fit 2 trays. You're gonna have about 60 plants. Then when we bring them to the finishing section where we go every other tray, you've got 30 plants. And so you're gonna, over time, slowly give them more space. We do that to optimize our greenhouse. There's a lot of money that goes into maintaining the facility, right? It's wintertime, we're heating it in here to keep all the plants nice and comfortable. In the summertime, you're actually cooling this space to keep the plants comfortable. So you don't want to waste space. It's not like in a field where, think about what a cornfield looks like in late spring. You got tiny little guys this big, right? And they're in their final spot. You can't move seeds around once they're in the dirt. That's okay, because when you're outside in that environment, there's no utility cost. It's pretty cheap. In here, we have a lot of utility costs, so we want to be really efficient and effective with our use of space. So they go into those nursery sections, get a little bit bigger. When they need more room, we bring them here to finish off. When it's time to harvest, all we do is cut them right at the base and then bring them to you the next day. It's the peak of freshness. Most of your grocery store produce is going to be about 10 days old by the time you get it. We're going to bring it to you just a day or two after it was harvested. So you get that peak of freshness, the nutrient density is higher, and more importantly, the taste is better. you're going to really enjoy eating your salad. And when people ask me, what's the best green or lettuce, what's the best salad mix that I can eat, I always tell people it's the one that you actually enjoy eating. It doesn't matter. Maybe kale's got more iron. Maybe Bibb has got, this, that, or the other. Which one do you like eating? Doesn't really matter what the nutrient benefits are if you don't like eating it, because you're not going to stick with it. And we're at the end of January, so maybe people are starting to fall off the wagon. They're starting to get away from their New Year's resolution. Come back to flavor. If you enjoy what you're eating, then you're going to want to eat it every day. And our Bibb lettuce is a perfect example of that. So if you haven't tried the Neighborhood Harvest, I hope that you'll give it a go. We're growing fresh, great produce for you right here in Suffolk. We're going to bring it to you a day or two after it was harvested. To all of you who have been subscribers, we thank you for your support, and I hope you enjoyed your tour today, seeing where your Bibb lettuce comes from. Thanks, guys.